Billionaire Daniel Whitmore returns home to a shocking sight. The family's loyal maid, Lorraine, is burning his mother's luxurious clothes in a raging fire. As neighbors gawk and secrets unravel, Daniel confronts a devastating truth that shatters his identity. What dark secret lies beneath the flames, threatening to destroy the Whitmore legacy forever? Daniel Whitmore gripped the steering wheel of his sleek black Bentley, the engine purring like a contented panther as he navigated the winding roads toward the family estate. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the sprawling hills that surrounded the Whitmore mansion. At 35, Daniel was the epitome of success. A self-made billionaire whose tech empire spanned continents, turning innovative ideas into fortunes that most could only dream of. His days were filled with boardroom battles, high-stakes negotiations, and the relentless pursuit of the next big breakthrough. But tonight, after a grueling week in Silicon Valley, all he craved was the quiet comfort of home. A glass of aged scotch, and perhaps a brief conversation with his elegant mother, Evelyn, who ruled the household with an iron fist wrapped in velvet. As the iron gates of the estate swung open with a familiar creak, Daniel's mind wandered to his childhood memories in this very place. The mansion, a grand edifice of stone and glass, had been his playground and his prison. Opulent rooms filled with antique furniture, crystal chandeliers that sparkled like stars, and manicured gardens that stretched endlessly. Evelyn had always been the pillar of poise, her sophisticated demeanor a shield against the world's chaos. And then there was Lorraine Parker, the family's devoted black maid, who had been with them for over 2 decades. She was more than staff. She was the quiet force that kept the household running, her warm smile and steady hands a constant in Daniel's life since he was a boy scraping his knees on the driveway. But as Daniel pulled into the wide stone driveway, the scene that unfolded before him shattered any illusions of tranquility. Flames leaped hungrily into the evening sky, crackling and popping with ferocious energy. In the center of it all stood Lorraine, her usually neat uniform smudged with ash, her dark eyes blazing with an anger Daniel had never witnessed. She was hurling garments, silk gowns, fur coats, pearl-encrusted shawls, into the roaring fire, each piece belonging to Evelyn's extravagant wardrobe. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burning fabric, smoke billowing like a dark omen against the fading light. Neighbors had begun to gather at the edges of their properties, phones in hand, whispering furiously as they captured the spectacle. Daniel slammed on the brakes, his briefcase tumbling to the floor as he leapt from the car. "Lorraine, stop! What in God's name are you doing?" His voice cut through the air like a whip, laced with shock and disbelief. This wasn't the Lorraine he knew, the woman who had bandaged his wounds, prepared his favorite meals, and offered quiet wisdom during his teenage rebellions. No. This was a stranger, fueled by a rage that seemed to consume her as fiercely as the fire devoured the clothes. His heart pounded in his chest, a mix of confusion and alarm flooding his senses. How could this be happening in the pristine world of the Whitmores, where scandals were buried deep and appearances were everything? The heavy oak doors of the mansion burst open, and Evelyn Whitmore emerged like a storm cloud, her pearl necklace glinting under the porch lights, her face a mask of pale fury. "Lorraine, you insane woman! Put that out immediately!" she shrieked, her voice sharp enough to slice through steel. Evelyn, always the picture of refined control, now trembled with unrestrained anger, her heels clicking rapidly as she advanced down the steps. The two women locked eyes, the air between them crackling with unspoken history, a tension that Daniel could feel in his bones. This wasn't just about ruined clothes. It was something deeper, a fracture in the foundation of his family that had been hidden for years. Neighbors murmured louder now, their gasps audible. "That's the Whitmore maid burning Evelyn's wardrobe. Can you believe it?" one said, while another shook their head. "If this gets out, their reputation is toast." Daniel's stomach twisted into knots. In his world, image was currency, and here it was going up in flames. He stepped forward, his suit jacket still buttoned, trying to assert control over the chaos. "Mother Lorraine, someone explain this madness right now." But neither woman responded, their gazes locked in a silent battle that hinted at secrets long buried. The fire hissed and popped, sending sparks dancing into the night, mirroring the turmoil igniting in Daniel's soul. Little did he know, this was only the spark that would unravel the tapestry of lies woven around his very existence. As the flames danced higher, Daniel's mind raced through possibilities. Was Lorraine having a breakdown? Had there been some argument he wasn't aware of during his absence? Evelyn clutched her pearls tighter, her composure cracking just enough to reveal a flicker of fear beneath her rage. Lorraine, undeterred, tossed another sequined dress into the inferno, her hands steady despite the tears glistening in her eyes. The crowd grew, their whispers turning into a buzz that threatened to spread like wildfire through the elite neighborhood. Daniel felt the weight of it all pressing down, the empire he had built on certainty now teetering on the edge of scandal. And in that moment, as the smoke curled around them, he sensed that the truth, whatever it was, would change everything he thought he knew about his life, his mother, and the woman who had silently shaped his world from the shadows. Daniel's voice trembled with a mix of fury and disbelief as he stepped closer to the fire, its heat licking at his tailored suit. "Lorraine, I said stop!" he shouted, his words swallowed by the crackle of burning silk. Lorraine paused, a sequined shawl dangling from her hand, her chest heaving as she met his gaze. Her eyes, usually soft and kind, were now storms of rage and pain, a look so foreign it sent a chill down Daniel's spine. "You don't understand, Daniel," she said, her voice raw, trembling with years of pent-up emotion. "You can't understand. Not yet." Before he could respond, Evelyn stormed forward, her heels clicking like gunshots on the stone driveway. "You ungrateful wretch!" she hissed, pointing a manicured finger at Lorraine. "How dare you destroy my things in front of the entire neighborhood?" The neighbors pressed closer, their phones still raised, capturing every moment of the unfolding drama. A woman in a cashmere sweater whispered to her husband, "This is the end of the Whitmore's perfect image." Another muttered, "What could make the Maid snap like that?" Daniel's jaw clenched, his mind racing to contain the scandal threatening to erupt. Image was everything in his world, a world of charity galas, magazine covers, and carefully curated perfection. He grabbed Lorraine's arm gently but firmly, pulling her away from the fire. "Lorraine, talk to me. Why are you doing this?" Her eyes flickered with something, grief, defiance, perhaps both, but she shook her head, lips pressed tight, as if the truth was too heavy to speak. Evelyn's voice cut through again, sharp and commanding. "Daniel, she's lost her mind. Call security and have her removed immediately." But Lorraine yanked her arm free, spinning to face Evelyn with a fury that silenced the crowd. "No, Evelyn, you don't get to silence me anymore. Not tonight." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning Daniel couldn't yet grasp. The fire hissed, consuming a fur coat, its flames casting eerie shadows across the mansion's facade. Daniel's heart pounded as he looked between the two women. His mother, elegant and unyielding, her pearls glinting like armor, and Lorraine, the maid who had been a second mother to him, now standing like a warrior ready to burn everything down. "Mother, what is she talking about?" Daniel demanded, his voice low but laced with danger. Evelyn's face paled, but she lifted her chin, her voice dripping with disdain. "She's delusional, Daniel. Jealousy has eaten her alive. She's always resented our wealth, our status." Lorraine laughed bitterly, a sound that cut through the night. "Jealousy? You think this is about jealousy? You know exactly why I'm doing this, Evelyn." The accusation was a spark, igniting more whispers from the neighbors. Daniel's stomach churned as he felt the weight of their stares, the threat of gossip that could dismantle his family's legacy in hours. "Tell me what's going on." Daniel roared, his patience fraying. He stepped between them, his broad shoulders a barrier against the chaos. The fire crackled behind him, its heat a stark contrast to the cold dread settling in his chest. Evelyn clutched her pearls, her eyes darting to Lorraine with a warning glare. "Don't listen to her, Daniel. She's trying to ruin us." But Lorraine's voice broke through, trembling yet resolute. "I'm not the one who's been lying to him, Evelyn. You are." The words hit Daniel like a physical blow, his breath catching as he stared at the woman who had raised him and the maid who had cared for him, both now locked in a battle that threatened to unravel his entire world. The crowd grew bolder, their murmurs turning into a low hum of speculation. "Did you hear that?" "Lies, what lies?" one neighbor whispered. Daniel's fists clenched, his mind screaming for answers. He could feel it. Something seismic was about to erupt, a secret that had been buried beneath the polished floors of the Whitmore mansion for far too long. As the flames roared higher, casting flickering shadows across the driveway, Daniel knew this was no simple act of rebellion. This was the beginning of a truth that would shake the foundations of everything he held dear. The mansion's heavy oak doors slammed shut behind Daniel and Evelyn, muffling the crackle of the fire and the neighbors' whispers. The grand living room glowed under the soft light of crystal chandeliers, its polished surfaces reflecting wealth and order. But tonight it felt like a battlefield. Daniel dropped his briefcase onto a glass table with a heavy thud, his eyes locked on his mother. Evelyn stood near the fireplace, her posture rigid, her pearl necklace a stark contrast against her pale skin. Her hands trembled slightly, betraying the composure she fought to maintain. "Mother," Daniel said, his voice low and sharp. "Start talking." What was Lorraine talking about out there? Evelyn smoothed her dress, her movements deliberate, as if stalling for time. "Daniel, darling, she's unhinged. You saw her. Burning my clothes like some street lunatic. She's been unraveling for years." Her voice was smooth, practiced, but Daniel caught the slight quiver in it, the way her eyes avoided his. He stepped closer, his gaze narrowing. "Don't lie to me. I've known Lorraine my whole life. She doesn't just snap. Something pushed her to this, and you're not telling me what it is." His words were a challenge, each one weighted with suspicion born of the chaos outside. Evelyn crossed the room to a decanter, pouring herself a glass of red wine with a steadiness that seemed forced. The liquid sloshed slightly, her hand betraying her nerves. "You're imagining things, Daniel," she said, taking a slow sip. "I should have fired her years ago. I let her get too comfortable, too familiar." Her dismissal was too quick, too polished, and it only fueled Daniel's growing unease. He leaned forward, his hands gripping the back of a leather chair. "Comfortable? Lorraine raised me when you were off at Gallus or traveling with father. She's more than just the help, and you know it." What did she mean about lies? For a moment, Evelyn's mask slipped. Her eyes darted to the side, her lips pressing into a thin line. She turned to face the dark window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. "She's always wanted to hurt me," she whispered, almost to herself. "To take what's mine." Daniel's blood ran cold. "Take what's yours," he repeated, stepping closer. "What are you so afraid of losing, Mother?" The question hung in the air, unanswered, as the grandfather clock ticked ominously in the corner. Evelyn's shoulders stiffened, her reflection trembling in the window pane. Daniel's mind raced, piecing together fragments of the night. Lorraine's rage, Evelyn's fear. It all pointed to something buried deep, something that threatened the perfect world Evelyn had crafted. "If you're hiding something from me, I'll find out," he said, his voice steady but laced with steel. "With or without your help." Evelyn turned, her face pale, her eyes glossy with a mix of fear and defiance. "Some truths, Daniel," she whispered, "are better left buried." With that, she swept past him, her heels clicking against the marble floor, leaving him alone in the glowing room, his pulse pounding with the weight of unspoken secrets. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the faint crackle of the dying fire outside. Daniel sank into a chair, his mind a storm of questions. He had built an empire on logic and control, but now he stood on the edge of chaos. Evelyn's evasions, Lorraine's accusations, they were pieces of a puzzle he couldn't yet solve. But one thing was clear. The life he thought he knew was unraveling, and the truth, whatever it was clawing its way to the surface. He stared at the chandelier, its light fracturing across the room, and felt the first cracks in the foundation of his identity. The mansion was cloaked in uneasy silence as Daniel paced his study, the same room where he had signed billion-dollar deals. The weight of the night's events pressed against his chest, each unanswered question a stone piling higher. A soft knock at the door broke his thoughts. "Mr. Daniel," came a trembling voice, familiar yet heavy with emotion. He opened the door to find Lorraine, her eyes red from crying, her apron smudged with soot. Her usual warmth was overshadowed by a quiet resolve, as if she had crossed a threshold she could never uncross. For a moment, Daniel just stared at the woman who had been a constant in his life, bandaging his childhood scrapes, whispering prayers when he was sick, always there in the background with a steady hand. "Why did you do it, Lorraine?" Daniel asked, his voice sharper than intended, cutting through the stillness. "Burning her clothes in front of everyone, what were you thinking? Do you know the scandal you've caused?" Lorraine lifted her chin, her hands steadying against the back of a chair. "I don't care about scandal anymore, Daniel. I care about truth." Her words were soft but weighted, each one landing like a pebble in still water, rippling through his mind. He frowned, stepping closer. "Truth? What truth? You've been with us forever. You practically raised me. If there was something I needed to know, why wait until now?" Lorraine's eyes glistened with unshed tears, her voice trembling as she spoke. "I tried, Daniel. God knows I tried. But Evelyn, she threatened me. She said if I spoke a word, she'd destroy me. And worse, she'd destroy you." Daniel's breath caught, the floor tilting beneath him. "Destroy me? With what? You're not making sense." She took a step closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Daniel, the life you think you know, your birth, your childhood, it's not what you believe. You've been living in someone else's design." His heart pounded, a hollow laugh escaping him, but it rang false. "What are you saying? That my entire life is a lie?" Before Lorraine could answer, the door burst open. Evelyn strode in, her heels striking the polished floor like gunfire. "What is this?" she hissed, her eyes blazing at Lorraine. I told you to stay away from him. Lorraine's back stiffened, her voice steady despite the tears. He deserves to know, Evelyn. Evelyn seized Daniel's arm, her grip tight as if he were still a child. Don't listen to her, Daniel. She's poisoned by jealousy, trying to turn you against me. Daniel yanked his arm free, his glare cutting between them. Enough. You're both playing games with my life and I won't stand for it. Someone tell me the truth, now. Lorraine's chest rose and fell, her hands shaking as she gripped the chair tighter. Daniel, But Evelyn cut her off, her voice venomous. One more word, Lorraine, and you're finished. Do you hear me? Finished. The door slammed shut as Evelyn dragged Lorraine out, leaving Daniel in the study, his pulse hammering. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in as his mind spun with questions. Lorraine's words echoed, someone else's design. What could she mean? His childhood flashed before him. Evelyn's cold distance, Lorraine's warm presence. Was there something he had missed all these years? He sank into his chair, the weight of betrayal settling over him. Outside, the fire had died, but its smoke lingered in the night air, a bitter reminder of the chaos that had erupted. Daniel's empire was built on certainty, but now doubt gnawed at him. Lorraine had been more than a maid. She had been a mother in all but name. And yet, Evelyn's fear, her desperation to silence Lorraine, suggested a secret so devastating it could unravel everything. As he stared at the study's oak walls, lined with awards and accolades, Daniel felt a chilling certainty. The truth, whatever it was, would redefine his past and threaten his future. He needed answers, and he would get them, no matter the cost. 25 years ago, the Whitmore mansion was a fortress of ambition, its marble halls echoing with Evelyn's dreams of legacy. She stood in her lavish bedroom, staring at her reflection in a gilded mirror, her hands trembling as she clutched a negative pregnancy test. The doctor's words rang in her ears, barren. For years, she and her husband, Charles Whitmore, had tried to conceive an heir to carry the family name, but each attempt ended in heartbreak. Charles, a titan of industry, was growing restless, his patience thinning as the weight of an heirless empire loomed. Evelyn, always the strategist, knew she could lose everything, her marriage, her status, if she failed to deliver. Downstairs, Lorraine Parker moved silently through the kitchen, her hands deftly preparing dinner for the household. At 28, she was a single mother struggling to make ends meet when Evelyn hired her as a maid. Lorraine's warmth and resilience had quickly made her indispensable, her quiet strength a contrast to Evelyn's polished control. One evening, as Lorraine polished silverware, Evelyn entered, her face pale, her eyes raw from crying. "Lorraine," she said, her voice breaking. "I need your help." Lorraine paused, surprised by the vulnerability in Evelyn's tone. What followed was a conversation that would change their lives forever. Evelyn poured out her fears, her inability to bear a child, the strain on her marriage, the threat to the Whitmore legacy. "Charles needs an heir," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I can't lose him. I can't lose this." Lorraine listened, her heart aching for the woman who seemed so untouchable, yet so broken. Then came the unthinkable proposal. Evelyn asked Lorraine to bear a child for them, to carry the heir Evelyn could not. In return, Lorraine would be cared for, her future secured. Lorraine hesitated, her mind racing. She was a maid, powerless in this world of wealth. Yet Evelyn's desperation was a quiet power of its own. Months later, Lorraine stood in a sterile hospital room, her hands resting on her swollen belly, Evelyn at her side. The arrangement was cloaked in secrecy, known only to Charles, Evelyn, and Lorraine. Charles had agreed, his pragmatism outweighing his discomfort, desperate for an heir to cement his legacy. When Lorraine gave birth to a boy, Daniel, the room was silent, except Daniel stood in the shadows of the grand staircase, his breath shallow, his heart pounding as voices drifted up from the kitchen below. The mansion, usually alive with the soft hum of late-night routines, now crackled with tension. Evelyn's diamond earrings caught the chandelier's glow as she faced Lorraine, her voice slicing through the silence. "You've lost your mind, burning my clothes in front of the neighbors," she hissed. "Do you realize what you've done to our reputation?" Lorraine turned slowly, wiping soot-stained hands on a rag, her eyes steady despite the tears glistening there. "I don't care about your reputation, Evelyn. Not anymore. All I care about is Daniel knowing the truth." Evelyn stepped closer, her pearl bracelet clinking against her wrist. "Don't you dare say his name like you have some claim to him. He's mine." "Do you hear me?" "Mine." Lorraine's voice shook, but she held her ground. "He's not yours, Evelyn. He never was. You stole him from me." The words hit Daniel like a physical blow, his hand gripping the banister for support. "Stole him? His mind reeled. Fragments of Lorraine's earlier words, someone else's design, echoing in his head. Evelyn's hand hovered near Lorraine's face, trembling as if she might strike, but it fell to her side. You think anyone will believe you? You're a maid, a shadow in this house. I'm Evelyn Whitmore, the name behind the empire. Lorraine dropped the rag, her voice raw with decades of pain. You've controlled me with fear for too long. You threatened me, lied to me, built your life on my silence. But Daniel deserves to know who gave him life. Evelyn's eyes flashed with fury. If you love him as much as you claim, you'll keep quiet. Because if he finds out, it won't just break him, it'll destroy him. His empire, his name, his identity. Is that what you want? Doubt flickered across Lorraine's face, her lips parting but no words coming. Daniel's chest tightened, his fist curling as he processed the snippets. Stole him, gave him life, destroy him. What truth could be so devastating? Evelyn leaned closer, her whisper venomous. Leave this house tonight, Lorraine, or I promise you won't live to regret it. Lorraine straightened, defiance etched in her features. I'm not leaving until Daniel hears the truth from me. Their eyes locked, a silent war of hatred and heartbreak. Daniel stumbled back into the shadows, his mind spinning. He couldn't confront them yet, not with his world tilting beneath him. The kitchen fell silent, the weight of their words hanging like smoke. Upstairs, Daniel pressed himself against the wall, the mansion's opulence now a cage. The truth was close, clawing at the edges of his understanding. But it was a truth that could unravel everything he was. The great hall of the Whitmore mansion, once host to glittering galas, now felt like an arena. Daniel stood at the head of the long dining table, fists pressed against the polished wood, his jaw tight as he faced Evelyn and Lorraine. Evelyn, draped in pearls, stood stiff, her chin raised in defiance, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. Lorraine, soot-stained and apronless, carried a quiet strength, her silence a dam ready to burst. Enough, Daniel thundered, his voice echoing off the marble floors. I'm done with secrets, done with whispers. I want the truth tonight, in this room, from both of you. Evelyn's eyes narrowed, her tone sharp as glass. Daniel, she's poisoning your mind. She's always resented me, wanted what I have. She's nothing but a liar. Lorraine's face twisted in pain, but she held her ground. I've never lied to him, Evelyn. I stayed silent because you forced me to, but I won't let him live in ignorance any longer. The air crackled with tension, the chandelier above casting jagged shadows. Evelyn's voice rose, a whip cracking. You don't belong here, Lorraine. I gave you a home, food, a job, and this is how you repay me, trying to destroy my son? Daniel slammed his palm on the table, the sound reverberating like a gunshot. Your son? He roared, his eyes flashing between them. Then why did I hear you say downstairs that he's not yours? That you stole me? Tell me, Mother, what does that mean? Evelyn's composure faltered, her hands trembling as she clutched a chair for support. Lorraine's eyes filled with tears, her lips trembling as she whispered, Daniel, I can't watch you live in lies anymore. Evelyn's scream cut her off. Don't you dare. She turned to Daniel, her eyes wild. She's trying to rip this family apart. Everything I've built for you. Daniel's hands shook, fury and heartbreak colliding. He turned in a circle, staring at the two women who had shaped his life. Evelyn, the mother of rules and reputation, and Lorraine, the caregiver of warmth and sacrifice. Which one of you is lying to me? He shouted, his voice cracking. Which one of you is my real mother? The question hung like a blade, slicing through the silence. Evelyn's face flushed crimson, her lips pressed tight. Lorraine's tears streamed freely, her silence louder than any scream. The grandfather clock ticked, each second stretching into eternity. Daniel's chest heaved, his heart racing as he realized he might not belong to either world. The world of wealth and legacy or the world of sacrifice and truth. The weight of it crushed him, the hall's gilded walls closing in. He stepped toward Lorraine, his voice breaking. Lorraine, if you know something, tell me. Don't let her silence you again. But Evelyn lunged forward, her voice desperate. Daniel, don't listen to her. Everything I've done was to protect you, to give you this life. The hall was a battlefield, their words weapons, and Daniel stood at its center, torn between two truths, neither of which he could fully grasp. The silence that followed was unbearable, a prelude to a revelation that would shatter everything. The great hall's silence was a living thing, heavy and suffocating. Daniel stood trembling, his eyes darting between Evelyn and Lorraine, his voice raw. Answer me. Which one of you is my real mother? The grandfather clock ticked, each second a hammer against his resolve. Evelyn's composure shattered, her pearls rattling as her chest heaved with ragged breaths. You want the truth, Daniel? She screamed, her voice trembling with decades of fear. Fine, she's not your maid. She's your mother. The words exploded into the room, sharp and irreversible, hitting Daniel like a physical blow. His ears rang, his breath caught, his knees weakening as if the marble floor had turned to water. Lorraine gasped, covering her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks. Evelyn froze, her face paling as she realized what she had confessed. The room seemed to collapse inward, shadows pressing closer. Daniel staggered back, gripping the table for balance. "What?" he whispered, his voice hollow. "What did you just say?" Evelyn shook her head, desperation in her eyes. "Daniel, I didn't mean— Listen to me." But Daniel's gaze locked onto her, blazing with betrayal. "You said Lorraine is my mother." Lorraine's body shook, her voice barely audible. "It's true, Daniel." "No," Daniel said, shaking his head violently, disbelief twisting his features. "That can't be. My life, my father, the Whitmore name, everything I've built." His voice broke, splintering into the silence. Evelyn stepped forward, her face etched with desperation. "Daniel, you don't understand. I did it for us, for you. You were meant to carry this name, this legacy. She was nothing more than—" Lorraine's voice cut through, sharp with steel. "Don't you dare finish that sentence, Evelyn. I carried him in my body. I gave him life. You can cover it with pearls and money, but you can't change his blood." Daniel's hands trembled, his gaze dropping to them as if searching for proof of his identity. The smell of smoke from the driveway fire lingered, but the real blaze was in his chest. "Everything I thought I knew," he whispered. "It's all a lie." The billionaire who had conquered boardrooms felt like a broken child, caught between two mothers, one of blood, one of lies. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, her voice pleading. "I raised you, Daniel. I gave you this empire, this life." Lorraine wiped her tears, standing taller. "And you're alive because of me, because I gave you breath." The hall was a crucible, their truths colliding in a storm of emotion. Daniel's mind reeled, flashes of his childhood, Evelyn's cold kisses, Lorraine's warm hands, now taking on new meaning. The weight of the revelation pressed against him, threatening to crush the identity he had built. He looked at Lorraine, the woman who had always been there, now revealed as the source of his life, and at Evelyn, the mother who had shaped him. Her love built on a foundation of deception. The silence returned, heavy with the wreckage of his world, as Daniel stood on the precipice of a truth he wasn't sure he could bear. Daniel's voice was a low growl, strained with the weight of betrayal. "Tell me everything. No more riddles, no more lies. From the beginning." He stood in the great hall, his eyes burning into Evelyn and Lorraine, demanding answers. Evelyn clutched the back of a chair, her pearls slipping against her collarbone as her shoulders sagged. "I couldn't give your father a child," she whispered, her voice cracking on the confession. "I tried, years of doctors, treatments, prayers in empty rooms, but nothing. I was barren, Daniel." The words splintered her pride, her eyes glistening with shame. "I watched the Whitmore legacy slipping away. Your father needed an heir, and I couldn't bear to lose him or this empire." Lorraine's hands clasped tightly, her eyes shimmering with tears. Evelyn continued, her voice barely audible. "So I begged Lorraine to do what I could not, to give me you." Daniel's world tilted, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the table. Lorraine spoke, her voice soft but steady. "I never wanted it this way, Daniel. I thought I was helping her. She cried in my arms, begged me. I was a maid, powerless in this house. What could I say?" Her throat closed, tears spilling. "I carried you for 9 months, birthed you in silence, then placed you in her arms and stepped back into the shadows for 25 years. Flashbacks flooded Daniel's mind, vivid and disorienting. He saw a younger Evelyn, her face drawn with desperation, standing in the mansion's kitchen late at night. Lorraine, barely 28, listened as Evelyn poured out her fears of losing Charles, of an empire without an heir. The agreement was struck in whispers, sealed with promises of security for Lorraine, but laced with warnings to never speak of it. Charles, stern and pragmatic, agreed, his eyes avoiding Lorraine's as the plan took shape. In a sterile hospital room, Lorraine gave birth, her cries muffled to keep the secret. Evelyn took the newborn Daniel, her tears of relief masking the guilt of claiming another woman's child. As Daniel grew, Lorraine remained in the background, her love silent but fierce. She remembered tucking him into bed, her hands lingering as she whispered prayers, knowing she could never claim him. Evelyn, meanwhile, shaped Daniel into a Whitmore. Private schools, etiquette lessons, a life of privilege. But her gratitude to Lorraine soured into control, her warnings sharp. "Speak, and you'll lose everything. You'll destroy him." Lorraine's silence became her prison, her love for Daniel a quiet torment as she watched him call Evelyn mother. Charles, consumed by business, distanced himself, his guilt a shadow he refused to face. Daniel's breath hitched as the memories aligned with the truth. Evelyn's cold kisses before boarding flights, Lorraine's warm hands soothing his nightmares, Evelyn's stern voice at Gallus, Lorraine's whispered prayers when he was sick. "And father agreed to this?" Daniel asked, his voice raw. Evelyn nodded. "He wanted an heir. He thought it was the only way. But I raised you, Daniel. I gave you everything. Your education, your empire." Lorraine's voice broke in, fierce. "And you're alive because of me. I gave you breath when no one else could." Daniel staggered back, tears stinging his eyes. "All these years, I was living a lie." Evelyn reached out, desperate. "I did it because I loved you, because I couldn't let you go." Lorraine's tears fell harder. "And I stayed silent because I thought it was best for you. But watching you grow, calling another woman mother, it's been a quiet death for me." The chandelier flickered, shadows bending across the walls. Daniel pressed a hand to his face, his empire, his name, his identity, shattered. The flashbacks faded, leaving him in the wreckage of a truth that redefined his past and threatened his future. He was a billionaire, but in this moment, he was nothing but a man caught between two mothers, one of blood, one of lies. Daniel stumbled out of the mansion into the cold night air, the echo of Evelyn's and Lorraine's words chasing him like hounds. His chest heaved as he crossed the driveway, where ashes of Evelyn's gowns still smoldered, smoke curling upward like ghosts of buried lies. He ripped his tie off, his polished shoes crunching against gravel, each step heavier than the last. At the iron gates he gripped the bars, memories assaulting him. Evelyn gliding through airports in designer coats, leaving him with nannies. Lorraine tucking him in, whispering lullabies, her hands cool against his fevered forehead. Evelyn's sharp voice at Gallus, hissing, "You're a Whitmore." Lorraine's gentle hands teaching him to ride a bike, clapping at his first wobbly ride. Tears blurred his vision as he whispered, "She wasn't just the maid. She was my mother." The mansion's lights glowed like a cage behind him. Inside, Evelyn collapsed into a velvet chair, her pearls scattering across the floor, her hands trembling. For the first time, the woman who ruled like a queen felt powerless. "I only wanted to protect him," she sobbed. "To keep him mine." Lorraine stood in the doorway, her eyes filled with sorrow, not triumph. "You didn't protect him, Evelyn. You caged him. You caged me. And now the truth has set us free, whether we're ready or not." Evelyn buried her face in her hands, her sobs shaking her frame. "He'll hate me. He'll walk away forever." Lorraine's voice cracked. "He might hate me too for staying silent, for letting him believe a lie." Upstairs, Daniel retreated to his old bedroom, pulling a worn photograph from a drawer. Him at 7, grinning with cake on his face, Evelyn stiff beside him, Lorraine in the background, her smile soft, her eyes glowing with unnoticed pride. He sank onto the bed, the photo shaking in his hand, betrayal pressing like a stone on his chest. "I thought I belonged," he muttered, "but I don't even know who I am anymore." Morning sun crept through the Whitmore mansion's tall windows, casting golden streaks across floors that had witnessed lies and revelations. Daniel descended the grand staircase slowly, each step a drumbeat of resolve. His eyes were weary, his heart heavy, but his face calmer now. In the living room, Evelyn sat hunched on a sofa, her pearls discarded like useless trinkets, her hands trembling. Lorraine stood near the fireplace, her apron gone, her eyes red from sleepless tears. Both women looked up as Daniel entered, silence thick between them. "For years, I thought I knew my life, my name, my family," Daniel said, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "Last night that shattered," Evelyn's lips quivered. "Daniel, I only wanted to—" He held up a hand, stopping her. "I know you wanted to protect me, to protect yourself, but lies don't protect, they poison. You poisoned us both with your silence." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, her body shaking as she whispered, "Please don't hate me. Don't leave me." Daniel turned to Lorraine, his gaze softening. "And you carried me, gave me life, loved me in silence, but you let me believe a lie. Do you know how broken that makes me feel?" Lorraine's tears spilled, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry, Daniel. More sorry than I can say. I wanted to tell you every day, but I thought silence kept you safe." Daniel took a deep breath, his shoulders heavy. "You both stole my truth, but you also gave me love, each in your own way. Today I choose not to live in hate." He knelt before Evelyn, taking her trembling hands. "You'll always be the woman who raised me. I can't erase that." Then he turned to Lorraine, pulling her into an embrace that broke decades of silence. "And you gave me life. You're my mother. Nothing can change that." The three wept together, secrets dissolving in tears. Neighbors, who had whispered and judged, now peered from afar, stunned to see the Whitmores not in scandal, but in raw, human truth. Daniel lifted his head, his voice firm. No more lies. From this day forward, we live in truth, whatever it costs. The mansion, once a cage of secrets, felt lighter, its walls no longer holding a lie, but a family rebuilding from ashes. Daniel's empire would endure, but now it would stand on truth, not deception. With two mothers, one of nurture, one of blood, bound by a shared love for the man they both called son. The Whitmore mansion stood quiet under the morning sun, its grandeur softened by the truth that had finally surfaced. Daniel, Evelyn, and Lorraine faced a new chapter, one where secrets no longer cast shadows over their lives. Daniel's empire, built on ambition, would now be tempered by authenticity, a legacy redefined by the courage to face the past. Evelyn, stripped of her need for control, found a fragile peace in her son's forgiveness. Lorraine, free from her silent sacrifice, began to reclaim her place, not as a maid, but as a mother whose love had endured decades of pain. This story of family, sacrifice, and redemption reminds us that truth, though painful, can set us free. The Whitmore's journey, from lies to healing, mirrors the battles many face in their own lives, where love and secrets collide. As Daniel learned, identity isn't built on names or wealth, but on the courage to embrace who we truly are. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories to light, stories that uncover the human heart beneath the surface of scandal. Don't forget to subscribe if this is your first time here, and to our returning viewers, thank you for being part of our storytelling community. Drop a comment below, tell us how this story touched you, or share your own experiences with family secrets. What would you do in Daniel's place? Your thoughts fuel our next tale. Stay with us for more stories of truth, betrayal, and redemption. And let's keep exploring the messy, beautiful truth of what makes us human.